Yeah, so this board will call our meeting to order January 30th at 12:04 p.m. Rosie, would you mind doing a roll call?
Sure. Director Phil?
Here.
Julie Peterson?
Here.
Matt Ranges?
Here.
Jessica Dixon?
Here.
And Chair Pimentel?
Here. As we all know, these meetings are public meetings. People may attend via Zoom or may attend in person. As such, we will be recording and keeping these meeting recordings available to the public, and they will post online. We have a short agenda today. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I will just ask that as part of my financial presentation, will also just talk about some of our cash positions.
Sure. If there are no changes, do we have any public members, anybody in the public here present? I don't see any. Or online that might wish to comment? Or is there anybody online?
No on the line.
All right. Then we'll move into our consent agenda, and our consent are our minutes from our December 26, 2023 meeting. Thank you for having those included in the packet that went on Friday and posted online. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Chair Freer. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mako. All those, let's call for the President, would you mind the roll call?
Yes, sir. Friel?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Ranges?
Yep.
Dixon?
Yes.
And Pimentel?
Yes. We move on to item number 2, our presentation on the financial performance for December 2023. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Julie, I'll put this up for you. Or I guess, do you want to run it in there, Lisa, so everyone can see, or would you like me to do it? Oh, this is gone. I got it.
Thank you.
All right, here it comes. Everyone can see this okay?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the month of December, and on a month-to-date basis, we did have a favorable month, and just slightly under the budget. We missed the budget by about $213,000, but we were on an EBITDA basis, $574,000 favorable. Important things to note about December is there's year-end adjustments that actually contributed to our favorability. So we had a year-end inventory of supplies, and that had about $1.8 million pickup. We released some prior year accruals that were no longer necessary, and that also resulted in a pickup. The biggest challenge, as has been all year, was in the net revenue side of things. Our volumes, while they were a little better in December than prior months, they were still below what we had budgeted. And, on both a month-to-date basis and a year-to-date basis, we've missed the volume projections fairly significantly. We've been able to, make a fair number of improvements on the expense side to not use up all of the budget that we had set aside for the expense side, but it's not a one-for-one there, and so the lack of volume has really been the main contributor into how we ended the year. If we can go to the next slide, year-to-date consolidated. What this shows you is, we missed net operating revenue by almost, a little over $24 million, while our expenses were about $15 million favorable to budget. So we ended the year from the perspective of all-inclusive, including the MPT leave, a $12 million loss. The one thing you don't see on this slide, is just the depreciation, which adds about another $1.2 million to that. So all in, it'd be about a 13.3 loss for the consolidated organization. The volume, some of the major things that we saw going on there, 425 less admissions, 161 fewer outpatient visits. We did see an increase in the ER visits, but we also saw a lot of that increase in the governmental payer mix, and so not necessarily the highest reimbursement. I did take a look at payer mix in general, and year over year, it's not that different, 22 to 23. But just from the month of November to December, we did see some decline in payer mix, less commercial, more kind of traditional Medi-Cal. So it's something we need to kind of keep our eye on just on a monthly basis. We do look at it, but I think how much is that shift? Because that really drives some of our AR valuation, and as we've talked this year, that is, as we've really tried to hone in on the best methodology for valuing what we think we're going to collect, that, what the payer mix is doing or what's left in the accounts receivable really drives that calculation. Next slide. Okay, so here's a little closer snapshot at the volume. We were, behind budget, both in the budget, which was primarily driven off of prior year. So hopefully that's something we'll see in 24 being closer to budget because we budgeted volumes based on our 23 experience as opposed to the 22. Slightly higher case mix, but I learned from case management, we had a few patients that had, were on long-term antibiotics or they were in declining health and they were on hospice, comfort care. And then throughout the holidays, sometimes you just have that impact on getting placement for these patients. How quickly they can discharge. Deliveries on target for December, but down 62. Check my number. For December, because we had 69 in December. I'm not sure. I think I have a typo there. We were down slightly to 22, but actually, I think that's just consider that a typo. That last part of that sentence. And then inpatient surgeries, close to budget in December and exceeding the prior year. That is one thing that I think we are noticing is some of the surgical volume, while it fluctuates from month to month, has increased over prior year. Next slide, please. On the outpatient volumes are below budget prior year, primarily on the non-ER outpatient volume. And historically, that falls either within radiology or physical therapy. One of the things we saw in December is there were some staffing challenges in the rehab section, but we have continued to have those in radiology or we have equipment issues that take the equipment offline for a few hours to sometimes a couple of days. We did average 92 visits to the ED this month, so that's been pretty regular and pretty steady through every month of the year. And then our outpatient surgeries, strong for the month, but what was missing in the December budget is by this point we had expected to have the cath lab up and running. We are targeting to get that up and running by about mid-February, and so our projections for 24, we are going to assume a slower ramp up, and so probably in the first 4 to 6 months, we're not expecting a ton of volume in the cath lab, but hopefully we can build it up for the we had 14 robot-assisted surgeries, a good number for December, considering you probably have a week or so at least where people are choosing not to have surgeries between the holidays. Just as a comparison, we had 21 in November, which was our kind of high month for the year on robotic surgeries. Let's go to the next slide. So here's a little bit about what we were seeing on the payer mix, what I was mentioning before. December being a little less favorable. We were down, 2% commercial, which is really 8 patients, but, the commercial reimbursement being significantly better than government reimbursement, that can make a difference. And then we had more of the traditional Medicare and Medi-Cal patients versus those off in the managed plans, and so that tends to be a little lower reimbursement as well. On the next slide, please. On the outpatient side, payer mix was definitely less favorable than November. We had 13% fewer commercial patients in the month and 148 fewer managed Medicare, Medi-Cal. These are, the 179, 148, so just under 400. That's on a basis of about, 5,500 between ED and non-ED outpatient. And then 30 more self-pay or uninsured patients than prior months. Next slide. So, a few things that are changing in 24, and I think they're going to give us the ability to just take our whole level of analysis, I guess I'd call it up a notch, even though it's drilled down a notch. But, we have been building department-level budgets, as you know, through our budget conversations. And so that's going to give us the ability to do a more detailed variance analysis of budget to actual, a little less reliant on having this month compared to prior months. We've established productivity standards at the department level and started sending out biweekly productivity reports, kind of showing a rolling 4 pay period so that we can, watch trends and see where departments are either achieving or close to achieving versus which departments are struggling to achieve, so that we can work with those directors and managers and make sure we understand the challenges to achieving their productivity. We have reporting covenants. We've previously had them for like the Packard loan, just certain reports, and giving them audited financials. But with both the distressed hospital loan and now our line of credit with Santa Cruz County Bank, we have more detailed reporting covenants that include, updates on our transition plans, some debt ratios, the standard financial reporting package, cash flows, things like that. So we're kind of upping our game in terms of that level of reporting. With all this, of course, comes the need to really educate our directors and managers both on how to read some of the new reports, how to interpret them, what's expected of them in terms of them being able to understand what's going through their department, what they have the ability to influence in their department. And so we will be outlining training education sessions for them. And, we've really been focused on expanding our reporting capabilities for the leadership. My team has, been trying to get in and understand all the data sources, where the data is, how to best pull it, how to best show it. And from what I'm hearing, it can have its challenging moments, but they're building some really nice reporting for folks. So I also just want to touch on, and I don't have this in the slide, but I want to touch on cash a little bit. As you you know, throughout the past year, we're always monitoring our cash very closely and trying to understand kind of what our normal rhythms are in terms of what's an average payroll, what's an average accounts payable, what's an average weekly cash collection. And then what gets sprinkled in there is when is our next block or dish payment, because those payments, you know, are a major contributor of our overall, you know, incoming cash, and they're important to us in terms of being able to meet all of our obligations. And we go through periods of time where it feels sometimes really tight, and then other times, you know, have a little bit more leeway. Looking ahead at the next quarter's worth of when do we make payments into the QUAC program and when do we get reimbursements out of the QUAC program, it's going to present some challenges for us. Payments generally being due, you know, anywhere from 3 weeks to a month ahead of when that payment is scheduled to come back to us. You know, the benefit of the program is that what you pay in comes back at a higher amount. You pay because we get the state match at whatever percentage it's at. It's not anymore as high as it used to be, but it still draws down state funds to help us get more than we put in. But we do have some payments that are going out this week and over the course of the next month, and some of the receipts coming in. One we will get mid-February, but the other bigger one from the managed Medi-Cal plan is not expected till April. So we know we have, you know, just a really kind of tight time frame over that next 90 days or so. You know, we already have processes in place for how we manage the volume, how we flex staff if the volume is not here or not projected. And so we will continue to do that and in some cases really intensify our monitoring around that just to make sure we're taking advantage of everything that's possibly available to us. It also means that we need to put kind of an increased focus on various situations that result in premium pay and overtime and double time. Things such as how well are we managing missed meals and breaks, how well are we managing incremental overtime of just, you know, 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there. So, you know, we're kind of doubling down on our efforts there. We are continuing, and this kind of elevates in our minds, you know, the need to drive the completion of our initiatives, getting the cath lab up and running, getting the most we can out of Vizient, our group purchasing organization, developing this financial accountability within the leadership team and making sure they have the tools to help them help us in this situation. And then, as we have been doing and we will continue to do, it's a very careful monitoring of cash. It's determining, you know, in what situations can we delay a payment, maybe just a couple days, sometimes maybe a couple of weeks. There's a lot of work that goes on at the AP level, sometimes negotiating those payment delays with our vendors, you know, while not compromising our ability to get supplies and materials that we need to deliver services. And as I need to, I will negotiate with the state around some of these potential spot payments. If we can't quite make them now, I have been able to negotiate those in the past to just delay the payment of those, and so working with that. And, you know, we have our $3 million line of credit with Santa Cruz County Bank, and our guarantors. All of that paperwork is done, so that's on board. So we are going to do our first draw from that line of credit this week, because we happen to be in a payroll week, and a first of the month week. And the first of the month week always have larger AP kind of must-haves because we have things like DNCT. Wow.
We used up all the distressed hospital loan money, 8.3.
Yes, a fair amount of that went into just daily operations, accounts payable, paying back when we had to delay clock payments in the August timeframe last summer. So, generally speaking, we have used that up. I have just recently done kind of a recap of how that money was used and kind of our turnaround plan status as part of our reporting covenants for that loan.
I've got a question on long-term cash flow. It's not what you're just talking about, but when Measure N passes, we'll get about $6.8 million a year. A lot of that will be tied to paying off the building and land. It was going to be 40 million, 30 million. Congress is going to get it at 19 million. But what's that credit worthiness going to be at that time when we're going out trying to add the emergency dollars, buying the land for whatever it is doing? Have difficulty being credit worthy to go out to lenders at that time, even though they know we're going to be getting $6 a year?
I can answer to that. My experience with debt financing related to tax measures over
Yep.
20 years. Because of the potential of the dollar measure, that's the rating of this underlying securities on the revenue stream. Because the revenue stream, it's approved by voters based on property tax. Property tax is very stable. Largely the district's bond rating will be strong because of that underlying revenue sources, the effective stream. Once voters approve and we obtain the assets themselves, it will only improve our future year ratings because we'll have assets that will make our balance sheet look strong.
Okay, but we will have to go out and get loans
Yeah,
to accomplish those.
the debt will be issued, debt market based on the revenue stream of the tax measure, not on the hospital operations itself. It'll be solely on the revenue stream.
Okay.
Because that revenue stream is protected and legally restricted only for facility use. It will be effectively the guaranteed payment for the debt service. Should be a strong rating.
Okay.
Typically, what will happen is the district's financial advisor, we would meet with rating agencies and banks in advance, potential purchasers of the debt, and then have conversations with rating agencies that make sure they understand us as an entity before we get the debt officially rated. There's a lot of mechanics to that.
Sure.
But you would meet with banks first to generate interest in the market. It's competitive bidding. You want people to bid on our bonds. And then the rating agencies, you meet with them in advance to make sure they understand the district, so that when they give their official bond rating, whether it's S&P or Moody's, we get different ratings and we try to get the most attractive rating out of them.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry if that made any sense.
No, it did.
Ultimately, it's the underlying credit of the ballot measure.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, the line of credit on the ballot measure.
Yeah. More eloquent way to say that, but that's effectively what it is.
Other questions? Because that was the end of my slide.
Lots of questions and more. I think we continue to have the same appreciation to all the staff who are putting this together. Not only are you meeting timelines, but giving us timely financial information, we're making improvements in the processes. We're creating standards and going above and beyond to train the managers across the hospital and have measure their monthly financials. And you say it's 4 weeks rolling on productivity.
For pay periods
Yep.
is what we show.
Yeah.
We have it.
Yeah. That'll all be a list, but just coming from a place of strategy that we have you and our team together.
typically a weak month, and we understand that. But any indications from January that things are beginning to pick up?
Well, this was at the last week, I think I've, seen this week's, weekly metrics, but our weekly metrics show that our volumes are still soft, and we're behind in admissions, kind of on a comparison, you know, we take what we have and project out the month end and then compare it to like last year and prior months were a little better, but, you know, last year compared to last year's January, we're still missing pretty soft on volume, on admissions and discharges. The average daily census is down like 6 from last year's January to this year. Our length of stay is a little bit better than last year. Our outpatient encounters is up a little bit, primarily in the physical therapy section. And our ER visits continue to be pretty high. They continue to grow. But, you know, so we're having a pretty strong month on ED visits, but averaging about 88 a day, so not necessarily as strong as December was. And then the surgical volume looks decent. Inpatient's a little soft, but last January was soft as well. And I think a lot of times Januaries can be soft on surgeries because people are new deductibles and they're not quite ready to put out the money that they might have to on their deductibles. Outpatient surgeries started off, they're looking fairly strong, a lot of it in general surgery and orthopedics is having a pretty decent month. Robot-assisted cases have started out kind of slow this month. A little bit of a mixed bag.
So there's nothing going on within the medical community that we've lost a physician group or a hospital? Not using this anymore.
Yeah, you want to?
No. Nothing affecting the volume. If we got into robotic surgery, are they just not getting trained to use it, or is it just a function of the month of December being not a good month for surgery?
Well, I think given that November was a pretty strong month in robotics with 21, I think that some of December was likely impacted by the holiday season, whether it be patients not wanting to have the surgery during the holidays, kind of having a week that's probably a fairly dead week to Christmas and New Year's, and potentially some physician time off. I don't know what the physician's vacation schedule is like.
Yeah, I think the holidays impact the tax volume significantly.
I don't know which version you have in front of you, Julie, but the last I confirmed with margin surgery was that as of Saturday night, we'd done 10 robotic-assisted cases. So the third week picked up a little bit. Not as strong as November, but kind of back to that level where the providers are performing, and hopefully folks are kind of just eating into their deductibles in 2024 and scheduling as needed.
Typically, once the holidays are behind us, you start seeing things going up on a rate of slope of just. We're in the middle of this winter season when people do tend to get sick or whatever else might be floating around.
It seemed like earlier in the month, when I was looking at the nursing soup report, there was a little bit of uptick of COVID patients, uptick of TB, but now this week it's kind of tapered back down.
Yeah.
On the payer mix, you mentioned that the payer mix shifted in December. Do you have any preliminary data? How came from the same point as John just asking in general, is their payer mix still less commercial?
I don't have preliminary data for January on payer. Not developed that capability yet, but it'll.
There's not a button you can just press. Just right up on the screen.
I haven't found that button. It might be there.
From a facility question again, I think in our budget we
supportive measure and talked about the telephone system being down more often than the elevators being down. Is that just happened to hit him the day he was here or something, or is that
Our
a chronic problem?
the elevators were down for periods, that's been resolved, so they're all operational. Our phone system, you know, is original to the building when we built it. We've not experienced tons of downtime with the phone system. There's been a lot of AT&T outages in the area that have been impactful at varying levels, but our phone system's been stable for quite some time now.
So no outlay of cash to fix it, or?
No.
I'll take solace in that the December itself had a $572,000 profit for December, so that was encouraging.
It is, because I always say that, you know, I mean, we get pickups that definitely helped us, but a certain amount of that, you know, you always do a year-end inventory at the end of the year. I think this one was unusually a large pickup. I think there was, you know, discovery of things that primarily hadn't been included in inventory and were included for the first time, surgical trays and things. May have been that previously they were on consignment and you don't count them into your inventory. You know, those things, it's not unusual for those to help you in December, and I'd much rather they help than go the other way.
Yeah.
But it did, you know, still kind of highlight the fact that, you know, lower volumes were really challenged to cut expenses to meet those lower volumes. Primarily because it's, you know, you can only take staffing so far. You've got your staffing ratios and your core staffing that's required to run the hospital, you know, the volumes so much.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, a major area of focus for us is how nimble can we.
Recognize that.
You mentioned in your report, and Steve mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, that the QUAF payment has been delayed. Is there anything going on? Is that going to be a constant unknown or a constant delay, or are they going to get back on a cycle where we can start playing?
It's back on a cycle. If Clause 8 was delayed, as was originally anticipated to be approved in the fourth quarter of, or maybe even the third quarter, but the last part of last year, so such that we should have gotten the first payment in December, that got delayed, and that first payment is due to us in February, but we have to make a payment. So we also got the benefit of delaying when we had to make the payment, but now we have to make the payment this week, and, you know, the other payment, the next payment is about 3 weeks, payment to us is about 3 weeks out. You know, you have, overlapping, because there's still payments to be made from Clause 7, and they come a little bit later in this year. I think the big one being in April is the first one. So the program's back on track with Clause 8. You know, overall, it's got about a $33 million net impact favorable to the hospital over 3 years. So it's over 24, 25, and 26. So, in my mind, there's not an exact science to how the timing works. Sometimes it feels like we have these stretches of no payments, and then we have some that kind of seem to come right in a row. And I personally wish it was a little more spread out.
What about the prospective payment? Has that been regular, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't recall hearing any major market basket shifts, good or bad, so I think it's primarily neutral in this whole mix of things. We do have, you know, some rate increases that go into effect, so you know, we'll be studying that with the revenue cycle team. You know, number one, we always try to manage, are we getting what we expected to get? You know, the new rate's been implemented, have the payers, because sometimes they lag, and when they actually get them loaded, they'll pay us back, but they just kind of take their own sweet time. We dealt with that last year, and, we're a little bit more, we try to be a little bit more on them, going, please don't delay us. We really need your cash collections now, not a windfall later.
Right.
And then we have, a couple of contract negotiations, or contracts that are in negotiations because of a little time. So that continues to be an ongoing process and, a bit of, the dance you do with payers.
Question back to the year-end financials consolidated for December. Other operating expenses was to the good, about $5 million short. Budgeted 11.1, actual was 6.1, unaudited. Do you have a sense of what is in other operating expenditures? What are some examples of things that are in there?
The largest item in there is cost payments.
Okay.
And so some of that would be, potential, well, some of it was the true-ups that we recognized through the audit process. And then, the fact that this first probably SWAP 8 payment that was due in some point of 23, November, December, got pushed out. I don't remember off the top of my head, do you guys remember any other significant?
That was the bulk of the other expenditures, but I can find the additional detail for you and share it offline.
This is one area where I think, I remember last year when we did the 23 budget, and we were budgeting things for MPT leases. I remember thinking early on in the year, we might have had a little bit of double budgeting going on, like things got caught in both the above-the-line rent and the below-the-line rent, so there may be a little bit of that.
Those that are for total salaries and wages and benefits for the year get unaudited for December for really 97% accurate based on a rush building of a whole system last fall.
3 weeks.
2 months into taking over operations, so I appreciate, the accuracy of that number. That's super important. Thank you for picking the right formulas way back then. Any other questions on the financial performance for December 2023?
Nope, none from me.
Rosie, anybody in the public? Any questions from the public?
No, nothing coming in online.
Any other questions from any members or general staff? All right. No action is required. We'll accept this information and move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is our Palo Valley Healthcare District and Healthcare District Hospital Consolidated Audit Engagement for the year ended 2023.
Thank you. This is mainly just an update to let you know that we have engaged Jarrell Tucker, who came to just a couple of board meetings ago to present the 2022, but JWT and Associates, his audit firm, we've engaged them to do the 2023 audit. We've already signed the letter of intent, or letter of engagement. We've already started providing them information. We're planning a regular meeting cadence with them, right, bi-weekly during the month of February and weekly during the month of March. Targeting to try to wrap the audit up by the end of March. I would love to get it in the March board meeting. Timing may, depending on how many Wednesdays in the month and things there are. If not, if by the March meeting, definitely by the April meeting in order to meet our reporting covenants, but I'd like to pad it and get it back to March. So we're going to deep dive into that. We do expect that the audit should be a lot easier than last year being the first year audit. There was just a lot of learning both on their end as well as ours around the district structure and where things were booked. So we do expect that the audit will go faster and be easier. And so kind of a update to you that we're
that need to go to the board for approval, even though we're up and running?
It's a standard management. I bring it here as this committee serves as like the audit committee. The fact that the engagement typically is the auditors with the board of directors. If you so chose at some point to want to change audit firms or any concerns, you have that direct line back to the audit.
Of course, will they be reaching out to board members?
I think only probably upon request, because I don't believe they did at all, during this last audit. But certainly you have that, ability, or, we can help you, establish that. We have the general questionnaires around internal controls and processes, and then have a new questionnaire that's kind of, tied to risk, fraud, things like that. We just got it, so we're gonna take a look at that. I think it'll have some overlap with the internal controls questionnaires, but, I think at least that is another piece that they wanna make sure that they're, informing the board about.
On occasion, depending on the nonprofit or the agency, government agency, the auditors, as a more matter of course in their internal controls or fraud checks, they would randomly call different managers and sometimes the board. So it's more of just making sure our newer board members never miss this. If that is part of the potential, that we just give our board members a heads up. You may or may not get a call. Informational items, there's no action taken. Any questions from?
No questions?
Rosie, any questions from anybody in the public who may have joined?
Nope, no questions online.
Questions from anybody present? I think we've discussed this information. Thank you for engaging in the contract. I look forward to having another clean, unqualified, good audit. And with that, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Right?